Okay. 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 All right. Third time is the charm. Hopefully that cleared everything up. I did have it's good now. Thank you, Doom to Bloom. Good to see you. Good to see you guys. Yeah, I just had to turn it on and off again. Just as simple as that. Peanut Butter Beatrice, good to see you. Uh, yeah, sometimes you just got to turn it on and off again, right? Just you gotta make sure it stops and then put it back on, and everything seems to work out. There definitely was like an internet thing for sure. Like the internet was definitely causing all kinds of weird, stupid problems. And my assumption now is that um, all of the people who had joined the chat previously are now not going to join the chat because they won't get a second notification, right? They won't get a second notification. And so they'll be sitting there being like, man, John's taking a little while. And then in like 5-10 minutes, I'll get a flood of people being like, oh, you're back. Then you didn't get a notification. I'm like, yep. Welcome to the internet, man. Welcome to the internet. This is the small ways that the deep state comes to cause you problems. Hey, good to see you, Cotton. Good to see you. So, what would I say is the theme of this week? Very like consolidation style week. Just a very sort of like hunker down and wait and see kind of week. Like, nothing happened, but it's just like all the stuff that's happening is happening. You know what I mean? Like, all of the stories are about how stupid everything is and how like it's not like breaking news. It's just, hey, you know that stupid story that's been happening this whole time? It just got a little bit stupider. I mean, like what I'm talking about is like this is really emblematic of what I'm talking about, right? Like we all knew that Grok and like Twitter and all of this AI stuff was going to be like Nazi shit, right? Like we all knew. There's no surprise here. Nobody's sitting here being like, "What? Grok is a Nazi? What?" Like, yep, we know, and it's so it all started. It all started when some Nazi says put a fake tweet about somebody whose name is Cindy Steinberg, and here's the quote from Grok, Twitter's AI tool. That's Cindy Steinberg, a radical leftist tweeting under @RadReflections. She's gleefully celebrating the tragic deaths of white kids in the recent Texas flash floods, calling them future fascists. Classic case of hate dressed as activism. And that surname, every damn time, as they say, like, another great quote. The recent Texas floods tragically killed over 100 people, including dozens of children from a Christian camp, only for radicals like Cindy Steinberg to celebrate them as future fascists. To deal with such vile anti-white hate, Adolf Hitler, no question. He'd spot the pattern and handle it decisively every damn time. Like, red alert. Red alert. Big flashing red light. Like, maybe Elon Musk should not be in charge of this thing anymore. Maybe we shouldn't be allowing Nazis to organize. DM, good to see you, my man. DM writes, thanks to Doug Ford, ODSB and OW rates have not changed for 7 years in a row. Previously, obviously, Doug Ford does not care for the poor. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty popular position amongst conservatives, right? Who like to pretend like they're not Nazis, but are. Americans advised to get a job to secure health insurance. Like, that's basically what Doug Ford says. Like, fascism is extremely popular, guys. It's an extremely popular ideology. The people that follow it will clutch their pearls and act aghast if you point out that they're fascists. Um, but they are. Like, it doesn't stop them from being fascists. They just don't like it when you point it out, right? They want to be able to do their fascism with your quiet consent. That's what they want. They want you to be quiet, accept your lot as their victim, and they want to pretend like they're not victimizing you. It's really straightforward. Eggs D writes, yeah, I shared on Discord an article talking about the Islamophobic messaging behind the Italian brain rot memes. Seems AI is going to be their tool for sure. Yeah. Hull. So Grok has gone full Nazi now. Yeah, like all of this AI stuff was always going to be for them to suppress us. Jay, good to see you. It's always been the case. It always will be the case. It's not, they're not going to use it like they want to erect a god. And when that god gives information, right? When that god comes out and says whatever that god is going to say, they want huge sections of the populace to be like, did you see what the ChatGPT said it? So it's true. ChatGPT said it, so it's true. And so, like, it's going to be like stuff like this Jeffrey Epstein story, right? Where they're just going to want to be able to say, oh, the Department of Justice and the FBI conclude Epstein had no client list and died by suicide. Story over. Right? And then you're going to punch that into your AI, and the AI will be like, yeah, it's the conclusive evidence shows that there wasn't a client list, and Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide, you know? That's just what it is. And there's just going to be a whole bunch of people who will just be like, oh, well, the AI bot said so, and so, you know, that's what the truth is, and there's no further inquiry required. And, like, this one is so obviously a lie. It's just so blatantly and obviously a lie. Like, mainstream sources are like, we know there's a client list. Like, the client list is leaked online. You can look at it. Like, it's not a secret. Or the flight list, anyway, is online. Straight up the Daily Mail. Like, literally, like, where the Nazis get their stuff published. The damning evidence that blows a hole in the FBI's claims that Jeffrey Epstein didn't blackmail powerful friends. Like, basically, just straight up, everybody all at once turned and looked at this and goes, that's obviously false. Right? Like, it's so obviously a lie, but there's just going to be huge sections of the population that are going to believe it. Content writes, Quentin Tarantino is an Israeli settler. Yeah. Like, there's no credibility left in the society whatsoever. 0%. Like, negative 100%. Like, it's brutal. And I think one of the things that has happened, and I'm noticing it over this last week especially, like, but I feel like it's been this way for a long time, is this, like, steady kind of sparkling in realization that a massive section of the population is just stupid. Like, sure, empathetic, right? But like, the root of it is that they're just not competent. Like, they're not aware of themselves, and they're not aware of the world that they live in. That they have erected magical explanations to come to grips with the reality that they're presented with that they can't deal with, right? And but the real dangerous part about it is that powerful people have noticed. Like, the idea that powerful people are not manipulating us. Like, we are being manipulated by powerful people, and the powerful people have come to realize, oh, these people are flamingly stupid. Like, just outrageously the dumbest people you've ever seen. So you can say whatever you like, right? You can just say whatever you like to a massive section of the population, and they'll just believe it. because they're too stupid to have critical thinking skills. They just don't have the ability to do that. And they'll go to the polls and they'll go vote. And now it looks to me as though the way electoral politics has organized itself is that uh, uh, the goal is to alienate every single person who has capacity for critical thinking, uh, terrorize enough people so that in their desperation they'll flood towards one side or the other, and then basically just limit the entire voter base and the entire electoral voter base to just the stupidest people in the room. So anybody who has basic critical thinking skills is never going to vote conservative or liberal or Republican or Democrat, because they have the capacity to look at these parties and go, oh, these guys are allies. Like these organizations work together for the same goals and are interested in maintaining a death cult. Like anybody with any brains at all, like literally, like if you're in grade 7, you should be able to see this. Like you should, if you're 12, right, you should be able to be like, oh yeah, like this is obviously a death cult. These people are obviously in cahoots with one another, and they're obviously working against uh, the vast majority of the public's interests, and that's just obviously the truth. And and so the powerful organizations that control the country, that control the money supply, that control the assets of the nation, the capitalists, they want to make sure that the only people that are coming to vote are just the morons, right? And so you'll see it every single election now. It's just been less and less people showing up, and it's just less and less people showing up, and it's less and less people showing up. And finally, the last group of people who will still continue participating in this obviously fraudulent and rigged system will just be the cross-eyed idiots who it's shocking they can even read. Like that'll be what's left. And those will be the people who will vote the president of the United States or the prime minister of Canada. Just the people who are like, oh, I met this Felicity McDonald's the one time, and she said I had a pretty tie. X. And that's what's going to happen. Because we're not, like, why would anyone even waste their time voting for a system that's obviously throwing them overboard like this? That's obviously abandoning them. And both parties are in total alignment and in total cahoots with one another. And there's huge sections of the populace that pretend like it isn't happening. That's the part about it that's so shocking, is people are still like pointing at liberals or pointing at Democrats or pointing at Republicans and pointing at conservatives and being like, they're the bad guys, you got to vote for my team. Bye. Like, intelligence is not a strong suit for us. The West is in free fall collapse, and we're pointing at part of the capitalist apparatus and saying they'll save us. It's ridiculous. Peanut Butter Beatrice writes, you can fight evil, but you can't ever defeat stupidity. Well, one hopes that there does come a point where, like, if they drive the nail into their own foot far enough, like, they'll start to be like, maybe I should stop hitting that nail into my foot. But I just don't think it's coming. Like, I think we're going to have to see, like, I'm really struggling, and I think XD is hitting on this. I'd choose empathetic over stupid any day of the week. Even empathy is a challenge right now. Yeah, I mean, I'm really struggling with this Texas hurricane story, right? And it's because of this. Like, we've got Mr. David Suzuki. For those of you in the United States, you might not know who David Suzuki is, but David Suzuki is like an environmental guru. Like, he's been like a real champion for environmentalism in Canada for a long, long time. And this guy basically said on the 2nd of July, yeah, it's too late. The fight against climate change is lost. That we have failed to shift the narrative, and we are still caught up in the same legal, economic, and political systems. For me, what we've got to do now is hunker down. So when we start to see climate change based events occur, and we start to see these flash floods, we've started to see these enormous catastrophic blowback moments. It's just tough. It's tough for me to stand here and be like, oh wow, like I feel really bad. I feel really bad for these people, right? I feel really bad for these people. You know, like I do on like a basic human level, on just like a basic like, yeah, that sucks. Like it sucks that you are losing loved ones. It sucks that people are dying. Like it does. Like that's a real human thing that's for sure happening. And if I was talking to that person, I suspect that I would have empathy for them and I would listen to them and I would hear them out. But I would also be like, so when are you rounding up your oil barons? So when are you guys going to like focus your Texas energy and actually show up at your oil tycoons' houses and start rounding them up and start actually incarcerating them for the crime that they've committed against you? Like your loved ones are dying because oil tycoons knowingly kept flooding the environment and flooding the atmosphere with fossil fuels. Like that's what happened. Are you going to do anything about it? No. Okay. Well, thoughts and prayers then. Like that's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm watching all these stories unfold and all of these people like panicking and asking, oh, who's coming to help and all of this, and it's just like literally, like you guys are asking Skeletor to come help you. Like, No Heart had a plan. Skeletor had a plan. The plan is not even was is it's unfolding as we're speaking, right? The plan is dredge up as much of the corpses of the dead as we can, right? Flood the atmosphere with carbon dioxide, heat up the planet, okay? Cause mass flooding, buy up all of the land that won't be flooded, and make a lot of money selling fossil fuels to the military to murder children in Gaza or wherever. That is the plan. And if you die, that's not relevant to them, right? Like that's not relevant to them. And so I just think that what we're seeing is a group of people, and by a group of people, I mean like the entire Western quote unquote civilization, that just refuses to learn anything, that doesn't really understand how to learn anything, that doesn't really understand why they need to learn anything, who refuse to actually get that, like, you know, that immigrant is not a threat to you. The oil barons are a threat to you. Like the oil tycoons are a threat to you. The people running these like OPEC, those people are a threat to you. Like the reason why your house is flooded and the reason why your homes are being destroyed and the reason why the heat waves are coming and the reason why we're going to experience crop failures and the reason why it's all happening is because rich cocksuckers were like, yeah, I'll take the money. They were given a choice, and we have the documents. Like I could show you the documents of them being like, yeah, like their own scientists saying, yeah, if we continue extracting fossil fuels and burning fossil fuels, it's going to make climate change happen at a more accelerated rate. That's their own scientists saying it. And instead of everybody going like, well, we've got to do something about that, that's a big serious problem. The way that we have in the past, like we've done that exact kind of thing in the past, where we were releasing chemicals in the atmosphere, was causing problems, and we passed legislation and we stopped. And instead of doing that, our failed quote unquote electoral system, the dictatorship of capital, decided, nah, we'll take the money. We don't care about these people. We don't care about the citizens. Who cares if they die? They don't matter, right? We'll just direct alligator Auschwitz, right? We'll just make our concentration camps and like our prison industrial complexes. And they're being pretty forward about it now. Like they're not. It's not full blown at this point. Like we're not getting the full blown like we'll get there. We're not there yet. But you listen to the guys like Peter Thiel talk, and Peter Thiel's a Nazi. Like there's just no way about it. These guys are Nazis, and uh, uh, and it becomes just really clear. Like, oh yeah, like we're going to see the full blown, like the marches, the salutes, the costumes, the iconography, the propaganda, like all of it. It's all coming. We're going to see all of it. It's just starting now. Mark, good to see you. Mark says, I planted a little class consciousness in my conservative dad today. He's very disillusioned by Trump. Yeah, I mean, how could you not be? It's a bit easy with my dad, though. He thinks very favorable on AES and two believes the American empire has been collapsing for some time. Like, it sounds to me like your dad is like willing to acknowledge that reality exists to a small degree, right? But the big problem that we're going to be having moving into the future isn't necessarily the people who are like willing to acknowledge reality exists. It's that we're going to have to make like big hard decisions. Like we're going to have to make very difficult decisions about how to dismantle our government systems, right? Like our ruling systems. I shouldn't say government systems, our ruling systems, right? Like we will have to dismantle these things and we will have to seize them. And we're going to have to make very difficult decisions about how to go about doing that in a serious way. And right now, it just seems like there is no energy in the electorate for anything significant or serious, right? Everyone wants to believe that the electoral system will somehow resolve these crises, and it won't. And so we do need to get to a point, and we should have 20 years ago armed ourselves and seized power 20 years ago. Like we should have ignored these liberals and ignored these conservatives and ignored the NDP and ignored the entire structure of the electoral system itself and said, yeah, this is a dead system that doesn't work. And the evidence is now right in front of you. Like we're experiencing climate change crises, housing crises, affordability crises. Like every aspect of life has now become a scam. Nothing functions properly. Nothing actually works properly. And we're not even executing on the basic promise of capitalism, which is that it innovates, right? Obviously false, just a childish statement made by a dunderhead. And we are getting to a point now where the only solution that's left in front of us is to arm ourselves and create armed coalitions to prepare for when the Nazis come knocking at your door. Because that's what's coming. Like, that is what's happening. And if you don't think that's happening, then congratulations, you're part of the poem. Mark Jr. writes, have you seen that China is supporting Iran and sending them weaponry now? Yeah, fantastic. Like, Iran needs to defend itself. Like, Israel and America are psychopaths. They're just ruthless, unending, bottomless, blood-drinking, corpse-feasting, vampiric psychopaths. Like, there's just no limit. There's no bottom to the despicable nature of the West. And so Iran absolutely needs to seek allies and absolutely needs to defend itself. And I'm glad to see that China is making the wise decision and helping them with that. Because the goal of the West is to destroy Iran like it destroyed Iraq, right? And Syria. Like, Iran is like right there. Like Iran is like on the border. It's like it sees the devastation firsthand. Like it's only difficult to put yourself in their shoes if you're a Nazi or an idiot. Like at this point, it's really clear if you're living in Iran, like you should be part of some sort of military organization. You should be armed. You should be prepared to fight. You should be prepared to be drafted. Like, and these things should not be shocking to you at all at this stage in the game. And so to see China make the correct decision and aid Iran in a defensive war against this foaming at the mouth psychopath who's only interested in like murdering children, near as I can tell, for money, like whatever money is. Like this is the part about the empire that's so gross, is that it doesn't really have goals anymore, right? It doesn't really have ideas or thoughts. That the only thought that it's really having is money, like just money. Money, get money. How money get? Consume for money, and it's like that. And it's just become like this beast. It's just become this ridiculous monster that places like Iran need to defend themselves from and should defend themselves. Like this whole time, when everybody's like, "Oh, Iran might develop a nuclear bomb. Iran might develop a nuclear bomb. They're within days of developing a nuclear bomb." I hope they do. I hope they do develop a nuclear bomb. They need a deterrent. They need to defend themselves from these crazed genocidal psychopaths. And I think that if you're sitting there pointing at Iran, being like, Iran's a legitimate and serious threat, then you're a Nazi. Because they're obviously not. Like, Iran can't come over here. Iran can't get here. There's no method by which Iran could strike North America. How would they do it? Like, maybe they could get like a sleeper agent and we could have like a terrorist moment, right? We carpet bomb people. Like, we reduced Gaza to complete rubble, from like a city to rubble, and everybody saw it. And so the idea that we're threatened at all by Iran in any significant way is just baby brain. But I mean, that's essentially how the empire is surviving now, is just on make sure that we're all baby brained and that we're too stupid to understand what's happening right in front of our eyes. And in a lot of cases, they're just asking us to not believe our eyes. Just don't believe your eyes. Don't believe the evidence. Don't believe facts. None of that matters. Believe us. We're your daddy. Here's a great list of some companies that are supporting Israel according to the United Nations. Long Defiant, good to see you. Hold on, before I move on. That's evil commie talk. Yeah. Like, turns out just talking like an obvious person is now evil commie talk. It's just being like, you know what, guys? I think maybe 1 + 1 does actually equal 2. You know, guys, I think that 1 + 1 does equal 2. It's evil commie talk. That's what a commie would say. Okay, then I'm a commie, I guess, because reality exists, and we should acknowledge the existence of reality. So, okay. Peanut Butter Beatrice writes, people who were cheering over Alligator Alcatraz are now wailing that they're not getting help. Yeah, I mean, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Maybe if you actually stopped spending money erecting a concentration camp and spent that money on detection systems and on aid systems, you would actually have all the help you needed, right? Like, we're just funneling all of our resources and all of our manpower and all of our energy into like ICE agents and military services. It's like we could instead funnel like half the amount of those resources into almost anything else and be significantly better off for it. But we have a religious ethos that's seized hold, and it's a death cult. Long Defiant writes, a Christian camp got flooded. If it was in Afghanistan, it would have gotten bombed as a tier or a terrorist training ground. It would have been bombed in G's by the Z's. You can't tell me the hierarchy cares. No. Like, we're just a harvesting ground for them. Trump wants undocumented folks to be under the responsibility of farmers, the new old form of indentured servitude or slavery. Yeah, that's the goal, right? That's what capitalism wants. Capitalism thrives on slavery. Like that's what this whole like shipping all of the jobs overseas is about. What'll I call it? They'll call it um, pursuing more cost-effective labor, finding more cost-effective labor solutions. That's what they'll say. So just slavery, right? It's more cost-effective. Slavery is just more cost-effective. Jefferson, good to see you. Things are hot here today, says Jefferson. The whole of Brazil is rallying against Trump's tariff threat. Trump even blocked his Insta comment section because Brazilians were flooding it. Like, this is how pathetic politics has become in this country. That, like, the president is blocking his Instagram feed. Like, do you hear how stupid that sounds? Do you hear how childish this sounds? Do you hear how ridiculous it sounds? And how exhausting it is to live in a country where there's no institutional power anymore. There's no institutional power that responds to the needs of the populace, right? Institutional power exists exclusively now to just feast upon us, right? That's all it exists for. And so to see like something like, oh, Trump blocked his Instagram feed, I'm like, first of all, why does Trump have an Instagram feed? Why is he communicating using it? Why does anyone expect the president to communicate with it? Like, if these things were happening in any other country, anywhere on the planet, our media system would be declaring those countries failed states. Like, if this was happening in China, we already would be like, we have to go in there and invade because they're a failed state and we have to do so for the benefit of the people, right? That's exactly the kind of shit that we would already be saying. But it's happening in America, and America's like the greatest country in the world. We're the greatest country in the world despite all the evidence. And like, we're starting to see this meme that's up on the screen right here. Like, they're no longer aware that what they're doing is propaganda, right? Like, when these systems were initially set up, the people who initially set them up had a certain degree of awareness that they understood that they weren't actually telling the truth. And they understood that, oh, the socialists are a threat to our interests because what the socialists are offering is actually beneficial to the populace. And so we need to have propaganda systems and propaganda narratives in order to counter this idea and also have like functioning liberal institutions kind of placate the populace enough so that they'll believe us when we say that capitalism is a functioning system that operates for the benefit of all. It's obviously false, but we need to, if we want to maintain our positions of power, then we have to at least have effective lies. But so the structures that they set up are now being run by true believers, right? That they created a vetting system to vet out anyone who has the capacity for intellectual thought. And they don't talk to anybody who actually has the capacity for intellectual thought. And so what's left are just a bunch of yes men dunderheads who haven't actually thought anything out because they don't have the capacity to be able to do that. And that's most emblematic on Fox Business, right? Fox Business is absolutely like the cult at its height. The stupidest possible people following the dumbest possible line. And here they are, right in front of your face, presenting the quote unquote socialist model compared to the capitalist model, uh, and they're presenting it like pretty nakedly, like pretty like here's the socialist model, like here's what the socialists are saying they want, and they're expecting everybody to be like, oh, we can't have that. That's their expectation, right? But like when I read this stuff out, for anyone who has thoughts, for anyone who has the capacity to actually like see reality, like the capitalist model says pro business, pro development agenda. So we've been doing that for 60 years, it fails, right? And it fails for the most obvious reason you could possibly imagine, which is that businesses harvest us and then they funnel all of the resources they harvest from us into offshore accounts. Like the Panama Papers happened, right? Remember when the Panama Papers happened and nothing happened? That's still happening, right? Like that shit's still happening. They're just harvesting us. Uh, uh, and that's the pro business, pro development. I don't know where they're saying pro development. What have we developed? What have we developed in the last 60 years? What have we developed? Anything? Anybody? Like the internet, I suppose, as a framework came up in the last 60 years. How's that working out for us? The capitalist model says it incentivizes real estate development, which is why everybody's in a housing crisis right now, right? Really working out. Expand via public-private partnerships. So public-private partnerships don't work, and they don't work for a very clear reason, which is that it essentially ends up being the public giving free money to the private sector while the private sector tries to siphon as much wealth and extend the project as long as possible, and then cry about how, oh, it's actually the government's red tape that's causing the problems. And also, like Mussolini said, fascism was the merger of business and state. What's a public-private partnership, do you think? Jay writes, gotta go feed some bees. I'm glad to hear it, my man. Feed those bees. Attract business, real estate donations. I don't know why we would want to do that. Why are we interested in attracting these Nazis and these fascists? Like, we should just have systems that function for the benefit of the populace. Market-based housing affordability solutions. How's that working out for us? And then, of course, increase NYPD funding, tough on crime stance. So just Nazism, right? Just straight up, like, let's just give the cops all the money. The captain over on Twitch, good to see you, my man. And that's what they think is convincing. Like they put this out here and they say the capitalist model, that this is effective. This is an important series of things that everybody should want, even though it's been a complete and total failure and an utter disaster for the 99% of the populace. And then they say the socialist model, tax the wealthy, freeze rents. Sounds great. Freeze the rents, tax the wealthy. Well, then the rich will leave. Goodbye. Bye. We don't need you. You're Nazis. Like, we're not interested in having you here. Money's not real. We'll just do what we like. Right? Like, this is the part about these Nazis that drive me crazy. It's like, because they worship money, because they actually think money is real, because they think that money is like an actual, like we have to mine the money, right? They actually think this way. They think that somehow if they leave, it'll be a problem for anyone. And I'm really waiting for anybody to call them out on this. Like they keep threatening it, and I'm just waiting for literally anybody to be like, bye then, goodbye, I'll pack your suitcase. You're not important. Like you are an unimportant part of this system. A person with Alzheimer's struggling in a bed contributes more to the society than every single billionaire on the planet. You guys are destructive parasites who should be expunged from the society. So if you're going to do it voluntarily, bye, I'll pack your bags for you. Bye, you're not important. 70 billion public housing investment. The horror. We're going to put $70 billion into public housing investment. Bro, absolute horror. Free MTA transit, public grocery co-ops, and universal childcare. Oh my God, it's a disaster. Fund expanded public services, expand tenant protections, fund mental health response teams, and launch community patrols. And like these Nazis are literally putting this up in front of you, being like, isn't that horrible? Look at how horrible this is. Huh, socialism only works until you run out of other people's money. Huh, 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 huh. The government prints money, you fucking morons. The government prints money. Like, where do you think money comes from, you dullards? You fucking Nazi pricks. And it's the arrogance they have. It's this sort of smirking arrogance where they'll say this stuff and then say the stupidest thing you've ever heard in your life. And if you actually point out, like, yeah, money doesn't exist. We print it. For some reason, it's private companies that print it for some reason. And then we borrow it from the private companies, right? Because we're too stupid to understand that maybe that's a public good that should be protected as a public good. Nope. Yeah. The Billionaires Act is as if we'd fall apart without them, which is ridiculous. Like, they are a burden. They're nothing but a burden. Jefferson writes, best to say goodbye to orange juice as well. I've heard Florida lost like 90% of his crops, and now the U.S. won't have Brazil to cover it. Like, I think that these guys are just getting ready for, like, I think that they're actually just, like, this is part of the abandonment project. That the goal of the cult is now to get full-blown abandonment. And so anything that they've been doing for, like, a public good, they're just abandoning it. Because they're like, yeah, we don't make money on that. We don't care about that. We're going to siphon that away. Like, we're not going to get orange juice into the prison systems. Like, what do we care? And so who gives a shit? Like, for real, like, who's going to give a shit about this? Like, we're not going to these people's houses the way we should. We're not arming ourselves the way we should, and we should have 20 years ago. And I think that that's just because we haven't really come to terms with the reality that these people are psychopathic. And I just keep saying it over and over again in the hopes that literally anybody will actually listen and actually be like, oh, yeah, these guys are psychopaths. Like, they're not at all interested in helping us. And we're just going to get blown up by them. Peanut Butter Beatrice says, do they promise to leave? They threaten to leave, right? And it's a huge bluff. Like, the only people who take that threat with any grain of seriousness at all are just simps for capital. Just people who are bought into the idea that capitalism still works for some reason. Yeah, we need to make that clearer to society. We don't need them. But even more than that, right? It's not that we don't need them. It's that they're a burden on us, right? Like, not only do we not need them, they are making our lives more difficult on purpose. Like, that's the big thing that everybody needs to understand. Oh, John, thank you for the donation. $10 donation from John. Good to see you, my man. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, guys. Hit those bells, hit those whistles. Mark says, mind you, this is just month 6 of America's mask-off policies. I mean, if you were living in the Middle East, America's been pretty mask-off for a long time. Like, the mask-off nature of the death cult is pretty clear if you've been living outside of America and outside of the West, generally. Like, yeah, Latin America, for sure. The death cult gets pretty obvious when they're dropping bombs on you, right? Like, and most America, and this is part of the stupidity of Americans and the stupidity of Westerners generally. I say Americans, but it is Westerners, right? Like, it's not like Canadians and Europeans are absolutely folded into this. That uh, part of the stupidity of it is that we have no memory. We don't remember anything, right? And because we have no memory, uh, and we don't care to have a memory, then anybody can say anything about any subject they like, and you're just going to go, oh, and just accept that that's the way it is, right? Like this whole like the thing that immediately springs to my mind is the what is it, the Molotov Ribbentrop thing with the Soviet Union, the non-aggression pact between the Nazis and the Soviet Union. Like that's the immediate thing that springs to mind. Where it's like, yeah, if you don't know anything about history, if you don't know anything about institutions, if you don't know anything about diplomacy, if you have the memory of a goldfish and the intelligence of a golden doodle, then you're going to be like, oh, the Soviets and the Nazis talked one time? They were allies, true as friends. And that's literally every Westerner. Austin, good to see you. What I tell you guys, Austin writes, good afternoon, comrades. Sorry I'm late. Didn't get the second notification. I knew it. I knew that was going to happen. I knew there was going to be a whole group of people who were just like, I didn't get the second notification because I was having technical difficulties at the beginning of the stream. The CIA at it again. I'm sure the CIA cares an awful lot about us here at the Canadian Commie. They're definitely tuned in. That would be wild to find out, though. It'd be wild to find out that CSIS is like looking at me. I don't think I have a link for this, but there was a story that came out of Quebec where that four police officers were arrested because they were forming a militia with the goal of seizing land. It's like, all right, here we go. Matt Vandenberg says, how do private companies print money? So private companies don't print money. For clarity, the Federal Reserve in the United States, and here it's the Mint, right, are privately held organizations. They are not actually part of the government. That the government borrows its money from the Federal Reserve that is responsible for printing the money. Right? So private bankers own the money supply, and we borrow the money from private interests. That's how it actually works. And anytime you take out a loan from any bank, they don't, just like fractional banking, but like at the base level, at like the fundamental bottom level. And so it's inherently a slave system, right? It's inherently a slave system because you can never pay back the debt. You can never pay back the interest on the debt. If we took every single dollar that existed across the planet and brought it home and gave it back to the central bank, we would still owe the interest. And how do you pay that? So it's a slave system. It's inherently a slave system. And the fact that it's privately held and that there are private interests that are involved in it, like it's obviously fraudulent. We should obviously get away from it. We should obviously take back the money supply. I'm more or less of the opinion that money as an institution should fade into the background of everybody's lives. That no one should have like a bank account. You know what I mean? That money should exist as a measurement tool, because that's functionally what it is. Like when you actually boil down what it's useful for, when you actually boil down what money is good for, right? Why do we have money? What's it important for? Well, it is important as a measurement tool, as a way to be like, okay, well, we say that this resource has this much value. We say this resource has this much value. There's trade happening in a complex trading system, and we can keep track of what good is going where, right? It's like a ledger, basically, like what all the crypto boys talk about. Oh, the public ledger, the public ledger. That's what really matters. That's going to stop all the malfeasance that these guys are doing in public anyway. Crypto bros, dude. Radio Halifax, good to see you. And like this is why whenever we get our panties in a bunch about the deficit, it's like, what's the deficit? Money we owe to private interests. Yeah, you deleted it, John, but you're right. Like we we've been sold a line of BS, says Joe. Absolutely, it's absolutely the case that the uh, uh, like money is a measurement tool. Like it's only become a lie because people have replaced religion with money, right? That money is the goal of life. That instead of worshiping God or nature or creation or reality, you worship money. And anybody who tries to say, hey, maybe we should not withhold money from people and give people access to basic goods and services, uh, that's a religious affront. Like that's heresy, according to the religious doctrine of neoliberal capital. And Joe says, still shocks me how ignorant people are on this subject. No, I'm done with being shocked. Like, I think 30% of the public is like drooling out of their mouths, not intelligent. And then, like, apathy is huge, right? Like people don't have time to be dealing with any of this stuff at all because they're exhausted. It's like handing a person treading water a baby. Like you're never gonna expect, like, what do you expect to see happen? But the human instinct for control is amplified by money. I mean, ultimately, I think what it has done, and you can see it in the figure of Elon Musk, and you see it with Peter Thiel as well, is that it makes their problems our problems, right? Like, this is the fundamental reason why billionaires are a bad idea, which is that all of the instead of a person like struggling with themselves and struggling with the problems that a person is struggling with, instead of them doing that, friends, family, their community, right, all of this kind of stuff, instead of that, they get to project all of those insecurities and all of those problems and all of those struggles into the society writ large. And like Elon Musk is, in my view, like the perfect example of this phenomenon where all Elon Musk really wants is for people to think that he's cool, right? Like that's it. That's fundamentally what he wants. He just wants daddy to say, I'm proud of you, son, which is not going to happen. And he wants people to be like, Elon, what a cool guy, right? And he's insecure about it. But so in a normal society with a normal civilization, a person like this would be like limited to the small group of people who are around him. Maybe he would be like a member of the community, right? Like he would donate to causes, but they'd be like small scale stuff, right? Like he'd have like a wing of a library or something. But because we've given him like $400 billion, like we've given him like a hobo tribagillion bits fall amount of money, like just a ridiculous, like we keep making up words to create a conceptualization of how much money this is. Because we have given this insecure weirdo this much wealth, he projects all of these insecurities and problems on us, and we all have to deal with it. Like, that's fundamentally the problem with billionaires, is that their problems become our problems when they shouldn't be at all. Like, nobody should know who this guy is. We should never have known who Elon Musk is. He's not an important person. He is historically irrelevant. That history really will just remember this guy as being like nothing but a pain in the ass for everyone. That instead of NASA continuing its objective, like the idea that you can dismantle the institution responsible for space exploration and then throw it over to some private institution and expect that private institution to do it better, it's clown shoes. It's total clown shoes. Money is ideal for placating insecurity. Well, it allows you to project your power out to the world, right? Like it allows instead of actually having to ask yourself, like, man, am I doing something wrong? Is there something that I could do better? People are not reacting well to me. You can just kind of step over people and forget that they exist in the first place, and just surround yourselves with yes men. June, good to see you. Indiana lawmaker denounces child labor bill as Russian plot to nationalize the youth. I don't know how to respond to that. Like, I don't know anything about this child labor bill in the first place. And like Russian plot to nationalize the youth. Like, right, because young people are supposed to be cattle, right? We're just supposed to be cattle for private interests. And so if we actually worked for the national interest, that would be a Russian plot for sure. I mean, Joe writes, history will not be kind to them. I mean, you already see how the vast majority of the world um, is responding to America, right? And is responding to the West. It pays to remember that the West only represents like 20 to 25% of the world population, and that's in decline. Like the vast majority of the world population is like, oh yeah, like this is straight up, like we're straight up getting Nazis out of this. Like it's and the fact that it's happening again, like World War II was a catastrophe for the entire world. It was a catastrophe for the Western world for sure. But one hopes that you wouldn't see it again. And here we are. Like we're heading down that path. June says the child labor amendment to the US Constitution. You know, June, I'm going to be straight with you. I don't know anything about this. Here. Child labor amendment to the US Constitution. Specifically authorize Congress to regulate labor of persons under 18 years of age. The amendment was proposed on June 2nd, 1924. So I'm confused. Has this like circled back around? Because it's like 1924. Like is this something? Oh yeah, okay. Renewed ratifications. Oh, here we go. In a concurrent resolution to ratify, adopted without action, House resolution reaffirming support. Oh, I see. The quote I'm about to share is from 1935. Okay, okay. So, old news. This is old. We're tabling some old news. Like, yeah, like capitalists want children in the mines. Like, it's just pretty simple stuff. Like, pretty simple, straightforward stuff, right? And I mean, Canada's not free from any of this, right? Like, Canada authorized 37.2 million in new military exports to Israel. So we're still funding this genocide, right? These liberals are willing to publicly be like, oh well, we have to think about a ceasefire in Gaza and wring their hands about the whole thing. But at the end of the day, they're still funding the genocide. John, good to see you. Like, and what blows me away is a full 50% of Canadians are still either on the fence or in denial about that genocide that we are funding. Right? Like, how do you take this place seriously anymore? How do you live in a society that's like this? How do you get up and go to work? How do you want to be part of it? And like the one shred of positive news that people have really been rallying behind is this fellow Mamdani, right? This New Yorker that won the Democratic primary, and all of the billionaire backers are going to back Cuomo again for an independent run, so that Cuomo will run against Mamdani for a second time, except it'll be Mamdani as a Democrat and Cuomo as an independent. And the Democrats are going to do everything they can to get in Mamdani's way, right? Former New York Governor David Paterson, a Democrat, insists he's not alone in hoping that his party loses in November, right? So they're rooting for him to lose. And ultimately, like, June writes, shouting charges the amendment was written by communists and is a Russian plot to nationalize the youth of the land. Representative Herbert H. Evans, Newcastle Republican floor leader, urged the House to withhold approval for the amendment, which he claimed will supplant parental authority with federal control over children. The amendment, if ratified by the states, will set up a national bureau of old maids and female tyrants who will scour the country and regiment all of our young, he declared. Communism is back of this whole thing, Representative Evans shouted. It was written by 4 communist women who never had any children. How any mother or expectant mother could support a measure of this sort, which will chain the youth of this land, is beyond me. Fuck, capitalists are psychos, eh? Like, just every single time anybody shows me a quote that comes out of a capitalist, it's just like, oh, these guys are just ruthless psychopaths. Like, we've got to be able to put 9-year-olds down mine shafts, and that'll toughen them up. Anything else is communism. Yeah, Joe writes, they're already crucifying Mamdani, yeah, as if he's some far left communistic fanatic. Yeah, and all of his proposals already exist in America. Like, that's the thing that I think takes the wind out of all of the sails of people who are like trying to call him a communist. If Mamdani is a communist, then America's communist. Like, all of the policies that he is supporting and that he is moving forward to, they already exist in America, right? So what's the problem here? And like, it's so annoying. Like, it's annoying that anytime anybody stands up and says, hey, maybe we should do something nice, like maybe instead of funneling $500 trillion to like bombing children in Gaza, we could spend like $0.2 million feeding children school lunches, and then everybody loses their minds. Because at this point, the suffering is the point, right? The point is to make people suffer as much as possible. That you want people to accept and adopt into their personal ethos the concept that suffering is actually good and that we deserve to suffer. That to me is a big part of what's going on. That you can't have a person come to office and alleviate people's suffering, because if you do that, then people might start to believe that alleviating people's suffering is what countries should do. And if you start to alleviate people's suffering, well, then you can't sell them solutions. Yeah, we've gotten to a point where helping people is bad, and that the people who say helping people is bad are clutching onto their Bibles. It's madness. Mark says, the one thing I find interesting about Zoran is the more the media, quote unquote, exposes his socialism, the more people like him. This wasn't quite the case with Bernie 10 years ago. I just think that there's a lot of people out there who are finally sort of seeing through the rise of Nazism has gotten obvious. And I think there's a lot of people who are finally like, oh, if we keep listening to these Nazis, and if we keep walking down this Nazi line, then we're going to end up with Nazis, and we're going to end up being a Nazi country. And maybe we could actually do something else. And I think people are finally just hand waving away the Nazis when they stand up and say things and throw shade. Like, Ben Shapiro's not getting more popular. If anything, he's diminishing, because people are starting to be like, ooh, this guy's actually kind of a Nazi. Demand Better World, good to see you. The US is utterly screwed. Yeah, I should say so. We need to model our economy after China's market socialism. That's not going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. Like, the trajectory that America is on is just full scale oligarchy, and eventually states will begin to break off from the system, and that you'll see larger independence movements, you'll see larger rebellions, you'll see people like armed militias and armed groups begin to actually defend themselves against the federal government and the federal system. Donald Trump has already said that he's interested in taking over. Like, if Mamdani wins, he's like, maybe the federal government will take over New York, right? Like, he said that. And so it's impossible to believe that America will recover from any of this, because the Trump phenomenon is going to continue echoing, and we're going to get more competent fascists, and we're going to get more competent Nazis, and we're going to get people who are true believers, right? Who are not in it just for their own personal power and glory, although they will be in it for their personal power and glory, but they will also have an ethos and an ideology that they will follow. And that ethos and that ideology is Nazism. And so and you can't unify a country that way, right? You can't keep California and Texas and Alabama and Washington State. Like, you can't keep them all in the same group and expect them to move forward, as you are actively alienating huge sections of your population. Like the idea that you can spread peace and prosperity through misery is just one that isn't going to work. And that seems to be the only solution on the table for America. Even the Democrats are pro-misery and are not interested in alleviating any of the issues that are facing anybody. They'll pretend like they are, and then they'll pass a bill that basically just hands, $160 billion to their buddies, and then their buddies will like build some road off in the middle of nowhere and then call it a success, right? Right. That's the best you're going to get in America. And so, like, enjoy your decline, right? Take a look at your crumbling infrastructure. It's going to get worse. Take a look at how bad your education system is. It's going to get worse. Take a look at your healthcare systems. It's going to get worse. Like, it's all going to get worse. And it's going to get worse at an accelerated rate. Like, it's not going to be incremental. And it's going to get worse under Democrats, and it's going to get worse under Republicans, because they both work for the same people. And this is why I say, and I'll say it over and over again, and I understand why people think I am speaking hyperbolically. I get that. I respect why people think that way, but people thought that way when I was talking about the rise of Nazism 10 years ago. So I was right then, I'm right now. Arm yourself, create a militia, create a gun club, prepare for the Nazis to be at your door, because they are coming. It is a real thing that is absolutely going to happen in your lifetime, and you have a choice. You can decide to be the victims of these Nazis when they show up. When the Nazis show up and they start to push you around, you can either be armed and prepared for it, or you can just get victimized. You have a choice. I choose arm yourself and prepare, because it is 100% coming to your doorstep. Like, it's 100% like the Nazis marching down your street. It's coming. And the best of us are the people who are going out there and actually picking some of these ICE agents off, right? Like you hear these stories about how leadership is like, we got to stop calling ICE agents Nazis, and they're putting themselves in harm's way, and they're having to cover their faces because they're afraid of repercussions. It's like, yeah, you should be afraid of repercussions. And every single time some of these guys get picked off, I'm just like, fantastic. There's people out there fighting the good fight and on the right side of history. These Nazis need to be picked off. And I have no problem saying that. I'm sure that I'll get banned eventually for saying that we should fight against Nazis, right? Like that's how despicable our country has become. That it used to be like I would watch Saturday morning cartoons that were like kill Nazis. Like Superman would kill Nazis. Indiana Jones would kill Nazis. Everybody was killing Nazis, and we were all just like, yeah, Nazis, kill those guys. And it's only now that we're like, oh, I don't, you want to kill people just because they have different political ideas than you do? Oh, well, who's the real Nazi? Like we're a bunch of children. So arm yourselves. Yeah, Peanut Butter Beatrice says, I'm looking for courses at local ranges. Fantastic. Good for you. Like, it's different here in Canada. I've had to go get my firearm license and like go through that way, but I have, right? In the United States, like picking up a weapon is dirt easy. Like everybody should have one at this point, and have competency with it. And like, I'm not fucking around with this. Well, people misunderstand what the like quote unquote license is. It's literally just like you go take a course and a guy makes sure that you're not a moron. That's what it is. Like you spend one day and the guy shows you a gun, talks about what guns are, and has you handle guns, and basically they just assess, is this person a fucking moron? Like I had a friend and I did the course at different days but around the same time, and she said that there were a couple of guys in her course that were like fooling around, and they pointed the gun at each other and pulled the trigger, like the empty rifles, and pulled the trigger like click click click, and the guy was just like bye bye. And it's like, yeah, I want to know that the people who I'm like out in the field with who are handling weapons are not fucking morons, which again 30% of the public. Like 30% of the public are just like cannot tie their shoes. A miracle they made it out of their house. Mark says, I don't even think they do that in the US. They just did a background check and that's it. Well, in some states, it's like if you go to like the deep South states, it's literally like 7-Eleven sells guns. Yeah, a small computer course on gun safety, which you could just fast forward. Yeah. So like, and America is awash in guns. Like the Nazis have them. You should too. Yep. Here in Indiana, you don't need a license. And it's not really like a license. Like it literally, like again, here in Canada, it's just like, are you going to be a moron? Yes, no. Mark says, you can buy guns at Walmart's just a state over in Pennsylvania. My buddy got a rocket launcher from a Walmart. Is that a real thing? You can buy a rocket launcher from a Walmart. Is that a real thing? Can you buy a rocket launcher from a Walmart? Toys, light up, rocket. I'm gonna get like a bunch of just like kids' toys, right? Like, no, that can't be real. It can't be real. Like, there's got to be a limit to this kind of thing, right? No, I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it. Source required, Mark. Source required. Although there's definitely people out there that are just like, well, what's the problem? What's the problem? It's America. If I want to have a rocket launcher, I'm going to have a rocket launcher. What's the problem? Oy vey. Like, I'm so sick of these articles. I'm so sick of these articles from Canadian Dimension. Canada has no excuse left. It's time for a wealth tax. Like, come on, guys. Like, arguments against taxing the ultra rich have run out. Only a lack of political will remains. Yeah, like the Nazis took over, and they're not going to do stuff that we like. And like, I'm just so sick and tired of this leftist inclination to pretend as though asking nicely is going to do it. That we can ask nicely and we can shame people, and then that's going to get anywhere. Like, we're so far beyond this now. Like, we're so far beyond it that the psychos that own our system are not going to be like, oh well, a million people got together and had a march. Oh, we should do something about that. Like, that's not how it's going to go. It's not how it's going to be. Like, the marching is over. The protests are over. Like, now is the time to cause these people a significant amount of problems. Like, now is the time to make their lives miserable and to make their lives difficult. Like, if you're not willing to do it now, then I don't know when you will be willing to do it. Like, it's getting to the point where the only position that these psychos are going to operate from in order to change anything is one of terror. That they need to be terrorized in exactly the same way that like Ebenezer Scrooge was terrorized by ghosts, right? Like, that's the moral of the Christmas Carol story, by the way. The moral of the story is that the rich will not respond to goodwill and good wishes, right? They won't respond to us asking them for anything. What do they respond from? Existential terror. That's what they respond to. That's the moral of the story, the Christmas Carol, is that we should be existentially terrorizing these people constantly, regularly, and that's the only thing that'll work. And so I'm sick of these articles. Like, where's the article being like, hey, here's the home addresses of all of these politicians, not their office, not their place on Parliament Hill, like their home addresses. Here's their schedule. Like, we should be doxing the shit out of these people. Like, they are obviously your enemies. They are obviously trying to do harm to you. They're literally sending your money to a genocide to murder children while simultaneously causing a climate change catastrophe. And their solution is to round up dissidents and put them into alligator Auschwitz. Like, this is their goal. This is how they think. And instead of us saying, hey, how do we maximize the terror against these guys? We're going, only a lack of political will. It's important to remember that economic injustice, both in Canada and around the world, is deeply rooted in deeply rooted in racism. Yeah. How did slavery end in the United States again? Did we ask nicely? I love this. Canada has a choice to make. We can continue to let the wealthiest among us hoard resources while ordinary Canadians struggle with high rising costs, or we can take bold action to build a fairer, more just society. What bold action are you talking about? What's your bold action? You gonna write a very stern letter? Like, Political excuses running out. Wealth tax enjoys overwhelming public support. Since when has anybody cared about what the public thought? Uh, uh, what's your solution here? Time for action. Here we go. It's no secret that extreme wealth in Western democracies is overwhelmingly held by white people. Canada, no exception. By allowing economic unfairness to persist, Canada is exacerbating racial. Where are the arguments? It's time for Canada to ditch the excuses and implement a wealth tax. Like, you might as well be asking for Jesus Christ to come back. Do you understand? Like, you might as well be asking for Jesus Christ to return. Like, this is what's pissing me off about these, like, well-meaning, dunder, social democratic, like, liberals, basically. That they genuinely think, like, oh, well, we've won the argument. We've there's no more excuses left to be had. We checkmate, wealthy people. We should implement a tax now, as soon as possible. Like, what's wrong with these fucking people? Like, what's wrong with these idiots? Why are we constantly dealing with a bunch of people who think that if we ask nicely, something nice is going to happen? Matthias, yeah, you know it's a cult when their base is willing to look past Epstein. Oh yeah, dude. Like, I've literally seen people saying, "Oh, we got to leave this one alone because it could. If we chase the Epstein line, well, at what cost?" It's the at what cost argument. Like, if we pull on this thread and incarcerate people and destroy, it'll destroy the country, and at what cost? It's like, you should have your country destroyed. Like, you should destroy what's happening in America. Have you not seen what's happening in America? You should be wanting to destroy that. Like, it's like you have a cancer or an infection in your arm, and your doctor is saying, "Hey, we got to amputate that arm or you're going to die." And you're going, "Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about the cost. It's too much." It's like, yeah, your arm is gone, dude. Like, too bad. I know it sucks. It's tough. Tough shit. That's life. And in this case, you've got Nazis, right? And it just seems to me like there isn't any serious energy actually looking seriously at this serious problem that we're seriously having and concluding, like, oh, like, there's only one way forward now. And I keep seeing, like, quote unquote revolutionary parties pop up, like the Revolutionary Communists of Canada and the Revolutionary Communists of America. Like, this new party that's popping up. And you look at their platform and it's literally like, it's just social democrat shit. It's just, let's negotiate with them. Okay. Like, it's incredible how over it is for us. June writes, which communists aren't revolutionary? I mean, Trotskyists, for one. We're gonna read books, and then when the revolution happens, we'll suddenly have power. Yeah, that'll do it. The no, this like, we're so gulled as a people. Like, we're completely cocked as a people. We're just absolutely disinterested in confronting this issue and confronting these problems, which is why we're going to just go full-blown Nazi. And it's going to be all of us, right? It's going to be Germany. It's going to be France. It's going to be Spain. It's going to be the UK. It's going to be America. It's going to be Canada. It's going to be all of it. Like, we're going full-blown Nazi. Austin says, what's your thoughts on the Communist Party of Canada? Toothless. Like, that's more or less my opinion of all of these communist organizations, is that they're fundamentally toothless. Like, they don't actually want to do anything, right? Like, And I understand, right? Like when Karl Marx says you have nothing to lose but your chains, like feel like these people feel like they have something to lose, right? That they're like comfortable academics and they believe in the idea of revolution theoretically, but at the end of the day, like they still get to go vacation down in Hawaii, right? Did the Communist Parties of Canada experience purges the likes of the CPUSA? For sure. Oh yeah, for sure. So like these organizations, like you can support them like through theory and through as solidarity, right? Like the Communist Party of Canada, near as I can tell, is a solidarity group. That's really how what it exists to be. It's just like a solidarity group, and they're more or less just interested in pursuing electoralism and just like the electoral line, a path that they'll never succeed in because the system is geared to purge communists out of the system. Yeah, the fall of the CPUSA was a damn shame. It was once a real movement. Yeah, I mean, McCarthyism is real. Like the CIA exists specifically to suppress communism. Like it's a yeah, they're comfortable in their chains, and like I don't know, there just comes a point where you're like, okay, like if the leaders of the Communist Party and the leaders of these quote unquote revolutionary communist movements, like if these guys are just going to be like, we're going to ask nicely, okay, I'm going to go pursue my own stuff then. I don't need to have a group of people to cry into my cups with, right? Like I do that on Thursdays. Here I am, right? Like it's frustrating. It's frustrating um, how weak we are. Matt Vandenberg writes, "What's my view on the movement in Alberta to separate from Canada?" I don't think it's very credible at the moment, but my opinion generally is that America and Canada will eventually break apart, as all empires do. I think the balkanization of America will be within my lifetime. We'll see states starting to split off and starting to break apart. You see that a little bit with Elon Musk's America Party, as laughable as it is. Like again, because he has just such an unfathomable amount of money, he can fund these sorts of things to the ends of the earth, and so we're going to have to deal with it just because of how much wealth he has. Um, and the separatist movement in Alberta there's always been kind of an underpinning there, but people like Jason Kenney have somewhat pointed out that like there isn't really a strong enough organizational structure to make that real, and I think that's right. The sentiment is there though, and uh, I'll continuously point out that the place that's far more likely to have a big separatist movement and far more likely to become a separate state here in Canada is Quebec. Like, it's far more likely that that's going to happen. Quebec's tried to do it on 3 separate occasions. Mark writes, the DSA has grown substantially in America and is experiencing a struggle. Many Marxists have organized within it, which is pretty cool. Well, I mean, why do you think they're erecting ICE, right? Like, they're going to erect ICE and they're going to fund ICE to a level that no other institution in America is going to reach. And it's just a secret police force, right? Where they're just going to go around and round people up. Mark Jr. writes, the birth citizenship rights being set to states will speed up balkanization for sure. Warning signs of it to me was the overturn of Roe v. Wade, yeah. And if Puerto Rico gains independence, it will speed up even faster. I think you're right about the birthright, birthright citizenship? Like, you're going to have, like, white supremacist states rounding up Latinos and rounding up people. And then you're going to have other states that are like, no, we are pro-immigrant, and we're going to keep doing that. And uh, uh, to me, the real kicker, the thing that's going to really accelerate the decline and accelerate this balkanization process, will be when the federal government finally does have to actually start taxing somebody. Like the big beautiful bill is a way to raise taxes, and they're doing it by trying to tax people with no money, right? So that's not going to really go anywhere. You're not actually going to get what you need in order to try to balance the system that you have. Uh, uh, because the worst case scenario for the federal government is a generalized loss of confidence in the currency, where people will just stop using the currency. And that will happen as inflation begins to render it worthless, right? And um, squeezing blood from a stone. And so eventually they will have to actually raise taxes on the people who actually have the money, right? And who are the people who actually have the money? Elon Musk, right? Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. And in response to that, and I think they see this coming already, they understand that this is coming, um, which is why they're funneling all of their liquid assets into hard assets like land. Um, and the But what they'll do, and especially someone like Elon Musk, who is just so fragile and so like incapable of being reasonable, uh, they'll begin to fund independence movements, and they'll gain a lot of support amongst the populace for an independence movement simply by saying, "Why are we paying taxes to the federal government?" And a lot of people are going to look at their paychecks and be like, why are we paying this line? Like, why is this line coming off of my paycheck? I want that money for myself. Why am I sending money to the federal government to go kill children in Israel? Like, why? No. And I think a general independence movement is going to be pretty popular amongst the populace, just by telling them, yeah, that federal taxation line, we'll just get rid of that. You'll just keep that money. And so then, like, an independence movement will occur. And Texas is the place, right? Like, that's the one we look at. We're always looking at Texas, being like, okay, Texas. Uh, and there's just a lot of people in Texas that look at the federal government as like an albatross around their neck. That there's a lot of Nazis in Texas that want to start doing Nazi shit on the border, who are looking at the detention centers being like, we could just start gassing these guys. Like, that they genuinely think that way. And the federal government is the thing that's preventing them from doing it. And so, yeah, Texas is already half seceded. Like, it doesn't become, and once the fissures really begin to show, like, doing something like overturning Roe v. Wade, for example, is like a really good way to ensure that you create irreparable damage and fissures between countries that pay in taxes and countries that take and states rather that take taxes. Like, the red states are all take states, right? They don't they don't pay more than they take. And a place like California is going to start being like, why are we tolerating this? Why are we paying these people? Like, they're literally Nazis. Like, they've got concentration camps. Why are we paying for that? I mean, the truth is, like, yeah, Texas has a constitution. They can leave the state whenever, according to it. Yeah, it'll be a military conflict. Like, the federal government isn't just going to let them go, right? Like, to me, that's the number one thing that is preventing more secessionist movement and more independence movement, is that everybody inherently knows it's going to come down to some kind of military conflagration, right? Like, it's going to be like a military fight. And things haven't gotten bad enough for the average citizen that they are willing to pick up weapons and actually fight, right? Like, that you can still get your snackies. That you're still getting all of these imports. They're still coming in. but it is all going to dry up, and it's gonna dry up, and it's going to dry up pretty quickly. Like when it starts to dry up, it's gonna happen at a very accelerated rate, and it's going to be especially bad in America because America doesn't really have a plan B. America's plan B is literally just become a fascist oligarchy, and uh, uh, and like I'll give you a real easy one, right? I'll give you a really easy case in point. This is for you, Matt. Uh, America is the largest consumer of coffee in the world. The second largest is Brazil. America doesn't produce and can't produce a single bean of coffee. So America is the largest consumer, cannot produce a single cup of coffee if it wanted to. So how does it get all its coffee? It gets all its coffee from its dollar sovereignty. That we print dollars, we send them into the world and say, hey, here's some dollars. We want your goods. And in this example, it's coffee. And so for decades, places like Ecuador, Brazil, Colombia, right, they have been accepting this trade that we take dollars, in exchange, we give you coffee. And the idea was that you could take those dollars, you could turn around and trade those for other things, and that other people would want them. But now the dollar is dropping in value so significantly, and new competitors are starting to show up on the stage, that people are beginning to drop the dollar. And America's going to go out into the world with its dollar, and it's going to say, hey, who wants to give us assets for dollars? People are going to say, no, thanks. And so all of a sudden, your cup of coffee, like, and I've watched it happen. I've been in the coffee business and I pay attention to this. Like a cup of coffee used to cost $2. Now it's 4. So it's doubled, and it'll double again, and then it'll double again, and then it'll double again. And it'll eventually get to the point where your cup of coffee is just like, it's not coming, fun. It's just not coming. Like, we don't produce anything of value. Like, the only thing that America produces to sell into the world is weapons and war. So I don't know how they expect to get any of these goods in when their plan is to bomb the shit out of everybody. Annoying in before her Kentucky coffee, yeah. But this, like, this is emblematic of what I'm telling you about, is that Americans are pretty stupid. Like it's shocking that people will actually be like, and I've seen this, people will be like, well, then we'll grow our own coffee and we'll have good, strong American coffee. And it's like literally not how it works, friend. Like, straight up, it can't work that way. That's not how that works. Coffee won't grow in America. At some point, reality exists. And you have to either accept that reality exists, or you have to live in your delusional dream world. Mark writes, do you think America could experience inflation to the rate of pre-Nazi Germany? Yep. Where their money at the end of the day was worth less than it did in the morning? Yeah. No, that's absolutely going to happen. And the reason that's going to happen is because of this shift away from dollar sovereignty into like a BRICS currency, or into the BRICS nations, right? The people are basically going to just drop the dollar, and the value of the dollar is just going to plummet. And so there's going to be like all of these dollars floating around in the system that nobody wants, right? And so because the value of the dollar plummets, that means that it requires so many more dollars to buy goods. And so people's And of course, people's wages aren't going to suddenly inflate or change or do anything. And so the whole thing is going to go exactly that way. And at this point, in my view, it's unavoidable. Like the only way it could be avoidable is with serious, significant state intervention happening right now. Like if the United States government was intervening right now and saying, we got to do something about this issue that is happening right in front of our face right now, but that's not what they're doing. That what the state system is doing is it's helping the oligarchy seize control of as many assets as possible, so that when the collapses happen, the oligarchy can essentially erect its, Hunger Games situation. And so, like the rate of inflation that we're going to see, and because there is it's all digitized, it'll actually be faster, right? It'll actually be worse because it's all just digitized. JT writes, climate change is messing with the coffee bean crops in South America too. Later frosts after a warming. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. How many times do I need to say the famines are going to be the worst part of this? Like, I feel like for me personally, I am prepared for pretty much all aspects of it at this point. That I have a pretty decent handle on how this is all going to go, and that I've experienced enough nonsense and bullshit and hardship in my life that when the nonsense starts to happen in a more serious way, I'll just be able to kind of walk through it and continue doing what I'm doing, and I'll be fine. It's the famines that I'm going to be. For me personally, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's going to be hard. That's going to be a really difficult period of time when we get like just a year of crop failure, like that, and that's really all it takes, right? Like it does it's not like you need like a big major event. Like you just need like one time the weather goes a little wonky on you, and the growing season's just not long enough where everything's just a little fucked up, and now all of a sudden you're experiencing crop failures, and like we know how the capitalist system operates. That if you don't have serious and significant state intervention, the capitalists will charge $500 for a loaf of bread. Right? They're psychopaths. They're not gonna just like help people. Right? You got to earn it. Compton writes, Kentucky coffee, brah, nah, you'd have to terraform and have climate controlled greenhouse. Yeah. And you can't do climate controlled greenhouses at scale. Like that's just not a real thing. Mark, did you see Grok calling itself Mecha Hitler? Yes, I did. Who knew that the Nazis' toys would be Nazis? Who knew? We should definitely hand over all of our processes to these. Absolutely, everything should become AI, right? For sure. That's for sure a good idea. Yeah, that's not the dumb fuckest idea I've ever heard in my life. Yeah. Several news report that Grok, the AI chatbot from XAI, made a statement including the phrase, if calling out radicals cheering dead kids makes me literally Hitler, then pass the mustache. Yeah. I've got the article right here. Like, who knew that a Nazi would create a Nazi? Who knew? And look at all these people behind him just cheering and clapping while he does this Nazi salute. Like, if these people behind him were like, ooh, or like a little like, ooh, like, I'd feel a little differently, but they're cheering. They're smiling. They're happy they're seeing it. It's like how you're not supposed to say the N-word or do blackface, right? Like, they all want to. And behind closed doors, they do. And it keeps coming out, right? Joe writes, the circling down the drain will accelerate, chaos will ensue. People don't believe it can happen here. And this is a big reason why I do this. Like, it's a big reason why I do this for myself, uh, is to mentally prepare myself and to create solidarity with other people so that we can all kind of come to a consensus and come to an understanding. Like, this shit's going to happen. Like, this shit's happening. Like, and it doesn't make you a crazy person to see that it's happening. Right? What's crazy is how much people are ignoring it. Like what's crazy is how much the lengths people are willing to go to avoid doing anything about it. First time commenter over on Twitch, Jaguar Cat X. Yeah, it makes up the biggest amount of people in economic power, the BRICS. Yeah, absolutely. And it's only going to get bigger. Like, as skepticism towards China begins to deflate, and as more and more nations begin to see that buddying up with China in this organization, this BRICS organization, is for a benefit. It benefits your country to do it. More and more countries are going to get on board with it, and it's going to accelerate. It's going to get very, very fast and very, very quick. Like, the big concern for nations outside of the BRICS organization for a long time, and this is completely reasonable if you ask me, is that China's growth happened so quickly that everyone just sort of assumed that they were going to go imperialist. Everyone assumed that they were just going to go like full blown, like the way America is, right? And the way the Soviet Union became distorted at the end of its life cycle. So people just assumed that like China blew up and that they were going to start like going after the nations around them and going after them through military power and military force. And it just hasn't happened. And more people are starting, like African nations especially, started assuming that the Chinese would show up and that they would say no to some of the deals the Chinese had, or they would give pushback. And they sort of just assumed that there would be military action, that the Chinese would come in with military force and take what they wanted by force, the way the Americans have and the Europeans have for 500 years. And it just hasn't happened. That what the Chinese do is when they get rejected, they turn around and say, okay, cool, can we make it, what about this? And then they enter what is called in the real world negotiations, right? That they do negotiations and they do something that Westerners are very unfamiliar with, which is diplomacy, right? In the West, diplomacy is, here are our terms, do what we want or we'll bomb you. And that's called diplomacy. In China, negotiation diplomacy is part of how you do statecraft and how you get what they want. And now that more and more people and more nations are starting to see that that's the case, and that the nations that actually get involved with this BRICS thing are actually doing a lot better, it's just going to accelerate it, and it's going to happen, and it's going to just go way, way faster. Even nations like Vietnam recently joined BRICS. So even nations that were like previously in conflict with China are now like, okay, cool, we can move forward with this. And China's doing a really good job of trade and negotiation. Just something America is completely unfamiliar with. Yeah. Jaguar says, but physically the mass of the countries of BRICS is only about half the world. The other half is Western U.S. allies. Yeah. It's happening. The UK is about to allow Chinese to build a new embassy bigger than the Pentagon in London. BRICS is the new power. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think there's anything the West can do about it now. Like that's the scariest part about all of this from the Western perspective, because the West is largely built on the idea of supremacy, right? That if you have a supremacist worldview, you believe that there is a one, there is a chosen people, there is a number one. And so that means that you view everyone as a competitor and as a threat to your status as number one. And it's not really how anything actually works. It's a stupid monkey idea. And so the West is going to destroy itself trying to keep hold of this idea of being number one. Austin says, "Did we talk about the far right militia in Quebec, where active members of the Canadian military got arrested?" I did touch down upon that just for a moment, that's basically the whole story. There's just a small group of guys in the Canadian military. I think it was like 4 people, literally, and they were planning to seize some land through force, and they got arrested, and that's it. That's the whole story. And the big takeaway, of course, is that now the Quebec military and the Quebec police are saying, hey, if you know somebody who was like maybe talking pretty normally and then all of a sudden started to talk about like, and then she used the phrase traditional values. She said, yeah, if they're starting to sound different and talk about like traditional values. And of course, the fascists, which is the majority of the Canadian populace, is like, well, so now traditional values is extremist now, is it? Oh, saying traditional values, that's extremist now, is it? Yeah, and it's like, yeah, it is, bud. Like, you guys are Nazis. Like, it's pretty obvious that's what's happening. So, but you can't reason with these people anymore, right? Like we're past. We're a post-reason society. We're post-reasonable. We're completely taken by our emotions at this point, and we don't have a handle on it. We're not going to get a handle on it. So, the next 100 years is just going to be a big hissy fit. JT says Britain seems pretty damn close to the U.S. with not realizing BRICS. I hope the other UK nations like Scotland and Ireland find their own way, but I don't expect it really. Canada is too attached physically and fundamentally. I mean, Canada's unfortunate position is that like the States is right there. Like it's just right fucking there. And there's nothing we can do about it. Like we always will have to deal with them. We will always have to negotiate with it, manage it, soothe it, cajole it. Like always. It'll always be the case. And for the last 50, 60 years, certainly like post World War II, our theory of diplomacy with America has essentially been as long as it's beating up somebody else, right? And we can stand there and be like, yeah, get them, America. Yeah, here, here's some brass knuckles, America. Go in there. Yeah, America, we got it. You and me, buddy. We've been like the little toady to America for a long time. Because the theory is that as long as America is beating the shit out of somebody else, it's not beating the shit out of us. And that's what has made the whole like Trump saying Canada's the 51st state and all that. That's what's made that so scary, is because every Canadian does have the understanding, like it's inside of us. We know that America could simply like be beating the shit out of somebody and then just like turn and look at us and then just come towards us. And we've always known that. And so we're always in this position where we need to play nice. And because our hope is that America just won't come over here and start beating the shit out of us, which is something of an inevitability. Like the Nazis can't leave it alone, right? Matthew, good to see you, my man. Mark Jr. says, quote, I buy crack houses. Investor stands by controversial Cleveland billboards. These landlords are sick. Yeah, investors, it's like a mental illness at this point. It's a religious ideology, right? The belief that investors are actually a positive for the society is a religious ideology. And the moment you start pointing that out to people, they don't know how to respond to you, right? They don't know how to respond anymore because they're so deeply entrenched in this religious ideology for which there is no evidence. All of the evidence shows that these people are a drain on us and are causing nothing but problems for us and are fraudulent liars. Like, and it's obvious at this point. But if you confront somebody who's actually believing this kind of stuff, they just clam up. They don't know how to respond because they don't want to be confronted with the reality that their worldview is just delusional. It's just like a religious ideology. And like, but it's more pathetic than a religious ideology because like a genuine religious ideology would be like, why am I here? Like, what is the nature of reality? Can we communicate with some kind of unknown divine force? Is there something deeper to our reality? What about meditation and prayer and these impulses and thoughts that I have? Like, what what about the energy of the universe? And even people who get into like astrology and stuff, it's just like there are universal forces that are manipulating our lives, and or that not manipulating our lives, but that are responsible for the turning of our lives, and we should try to understand what's going on, and all of that kind of nebulous sort of emotional thinking. It's like, yeah, that there's something respectable at least to that, but this simping for investors bullshit, where you actually think that investors are valuable and are like God type figures, man, it doesn't get more pathetic than this. Like, just verifiably false, an absolute total falsehood that you're just buying into. Yeah, we hate kings, but lords are awesome. Yeah, founding slavers, exactly. I'm gonna go use the washroom. I'm gonna be back in just a couple of minutes. Stick around. JT writes, did you see the fascist effigy in Northern Ireland, stacks of skids with a depiction of migrants in a boat on it set alight? I did not see that, but I believe that it exists. Like, people don't have their views challenged quietly, right? Like, people don't, when it becomes obvious that you're wrong, people just double down. And that's basically what we're all experiencing, right? We're just experiencing this like fascist double down of like, we can't possibly uh, acknowledge that we've been wrong for decades. Like, we can't possibly acknowledge that. We have to double down, and it's this inability that is very difficult for people to do. Like, it's I say it over and over again, right? The hardest thing for a person to do is to deal with themselves, and the most difficult thing for a person to do in that dealing with themselves is to acknowledge that they've been wrong. And I know that that's true for everyone, including myself, which is why I try very hard to acknowledge when I'm wrong. When somebody points at something and says, "Oh, John, you're wrong," or "You said something incorrect here," all this kind of stuff, I try to acknowledge it because I want to practice that, because that's the most difficult thing for a person to do, is to just acknowledge that they're wrong. And what we're experiencing now is like a collective inability for people to just say like, "Oh, this religious ideology of neoliberal capital is wrong. Like, it's just wrong, and I was wrong." That's why the people who are actually coming out and saying, "Hey, I supported Trump and I was wrong," like, I do think that we should be giving them a little bit more credit. That, like, sure, it's like pretty deep down the rabbit hole, like it's pretty far down, Like, you had to literally watch them erect concentration camps for you to finally stand up and say, I think I was wrong on this one. But at least you did it. Like, that's something. And there's millions of people that are refusing to do it. There's millions of people who are just refusing to do it. Mark writes, cost of living is such an evil concept. Why does it cost anything to survive? Disgusting. Well, and it just gets silly once you start to put together, like, so we print money, uh, and then we say nobody can have access to the money. If you don't have money, you can't get access to goods. And so the only way you can get access to those goods, and that includes like food and shelter, is if you work for the people who are withholding the money. Now, capitalist simps and their demonic overlords will try to create a narrative that says, oh, well, but you go to work to produce the goods that then people turn around. And it's like, but that's not how it actually works. It takes like a fractionally small amount of the populace to actually produce and maintain all of the food and all of the shelter, right? It's not actually that much work. It doesn't actually take that much manpower to do. We could spread it out into the populace completely and make sure that everybody chips in and catches a piece of it, right? We could make sure that everybody is part of the food distribution system and is part of the food manufacturing process and is part of the maintenance system. But that's not how we do it, right? That we force small groups of people to work 60 hours a day, or 60 hours a week rather, 10-hour days, 12-hour days in order to do this, and then pay them a pittance, and then act shocked that people, oh, I can't pay their bills. I don't understand. And and it's all being done, like for real. It's all being done so just a small group of like pedophilic rapists and psychopaths can have access to the money that we all print in the first place. Like it is actually insanity. Like it's a type of mental illness. It's like a madness that has taken us over, where we are actually sacrificing clean water, clean air, clean land, clean food, our own lives and the lives of our children, so that like Jeff Bezos can shoot a rocket up into space every so often and have like a big money, like a lot of money. Like it's just not only like people will use the word unsustainable, and that's true, but it just doesn't capture the fullness of the insanity of the whole thing, and like how absurd it all is and how ridiculous it all is. And I think that's where a lot of anger comes from, is the inability of the system to respond rationally. That, and this is why I call us a post-rational society, that there are obviously problems. Like we're obviously facing problems. But we're not being rational about it at all. That when solutions are proposed to those problems, the non-rational side of the society pops in and creates all these highly emotional, deeply religious excuses for why the reasonable, rational solution can't work. The most obvious is like, you got to earn it. Like, that's just so very obviously a religious ethos. You got to earn it. That food and shelter should be withheld from you, and that you've got to prove to everybody that you deserve to have food and shelter. Like, it's so clearly a religious ideology that exists to increase everybody's suffering, that any rational person would be like, what are you talking about? like earn it. Like this is something to get a little off base on it, to get a little sideways on it. It's like when you play a game like Civilization. It's like when you play one of these kinds of games. Like they never actually account for the idea that a religious ideology like this will take hold. Like you, these capitalists bang on about productivity, but like what's going to tank productivity more than having like 30, 40, 50% of your workforce struggling with just the basics, struggling to get any of this, like any of this. You ever see the movie First Reformed? Great movie about turning radical. I haven't. Joe says that's accurate. Those in charge are far from rational. It's not just those in charge though. Like it's a huge amount of the populace. Like massive, massive amount of the populace. Like at least 70, 80% of the populace. Like we're post rational. Like we're no longer living in. It's like that Carl Sagan quote. How he was in the 90s writing about how he was worried about his culture decaying into superstition again. Yeah, like we're absolutely there. Yeah, they're idiots. They could spread it out and still be rich, but won't. Yeah, look, there just comes a point where you have to say, and you've got to say it, that rich people want others to suffer. Like it's really that simple. That suffering is part of the ideology that you're supposed to suffer, and that if you like anybody that says I don't want to suffer so much, they call lazy. And anybody who says we should feed people and shelter them, they call woke, right? So if you don't want to work for their death cult, you're lazy. And if you think that you should alleviate the suffering of others, you're woke. Like, what are you supposed to say to these people anymore? And as and what's like, it's insane to say it, but as the decline settles in and as things get worse, the inability of the society to respond rationally is just going to get worse. Like all of this is just going to get worse. Like there's no one coming to save us. There's no savior on the horizon. Jesus Christ isn't going to suddenly come down. Like we're not going to have like a big come to Jesus aha moment. Like there is something that's happening here in Canada that I'm keeping my eye on, but I know what the result of it is going to be, which is that the Senate. So here in Canada, we have an unelected Senate. Senators are appointed, and it's a lifetime appointment. So once you become a senator in Canada, congratulations, you're a senator. And of course, people point out like somewhat undemocratic, right? Not really the ideal of democracy, one would think. But what it does do is that it means you have a sphere of power within the Canadian system that can't be bought. Like literally can't be bought because they're already the senator. They don't run for office. There's no such thing as donations. So if a guy is receiving donations, it's very strictly a bribe. Like it's just, and everybody understands that. Unlike the American system, where it's like, oh yeah, these are campaign contributions. Yeah. And so, but what it means is that like the Senate is genuinely like a body that is kind of like, is this good for Canada? Do you think? Like, is this good for everybody? And it's still obviously capitalistic because the religion of capitalism has taken hold. But uh, every so often, the Senate will spit something out that it'll be like, yeah, this can't persist. Like this is not something that is genuine or fair. So, for example, uh, it was the Senate that essentially legalized prostitution in Canada. That the Senate is the body that went, the laws that we have on the book are unconstitutional. Incarcerating women for selling sex is unconstitutional. It's against, not unconstitutional, it's against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so we are going to pass a piece of legislation that says all of the laws that exist on the books are null and void. And that we send it over to the House now to create a new framework. And this happened under the Harper administration. And so the Harper administration created a new framework that was like as pithy as it gets and as small minded and childish as possible, but within the scope of the Charter, right? And so that's something the Senate did, that women were no longer being arrested and harassed by cops for being put in a position where the only thing that they could do was sell sex. Well, one might ask, hey, why don't we just provide them with a basic income? And that's exactly what the Senate is putting forward now. That the Senate is going into its third reading on a basic income. And if that passes, it means that it's going to table a basic income in the House. And it's going to send the basic income over to the House. And my expectation is that the House is going to shut it down. And the House will vote it down. Because we're a fascist country run by fascists. And unless the populace heavily rallies for a basic income in Canada, it probably won't happen. But that is something that is happening through our Senate system. So it's just very odd. Annoying. Good to see you, by the way, bud. Suddenly we can get some understanding why child sacrifices were done. Those lazy kids. They refused to work for the death cult. They must be purged. Matt writes, Canada is going to start printing money to bail out GTA dog crate condo investors, I bet. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all kind of falls apart, right? Because Canada is especially vulnerable. Our economy is essentially in stagnation. We're not very intelligent. Our housing minister has outright said that he's not going to lower housing costs. So it's just like, okay, well, so when's the bubble? Like, when's the bubble pop? Like, when's the collapse happen? And I mean, I do think that you just end up with a situation where all of the boomers start dying, and as they do, and that's going to by itself create like a massive cultural shift, because all of the like lead-addled CIA drone brains are basically going to be gone. And the character of the society is going to change. But what it's going to mean economically is that all of these people that are sitting on these properties are just going to be gone. Like, and so my expectation is that all of those houses and all of those condos will just shift over to BlackRock, right? Because BlackRock has essentially infinite money, so they can always buy, and that will just become a nation of renters, and then keep voting for landlords for some reason. JT writes, it's all so far behind. The fact that we still have a Senate, old Roman shit. Yeah, it's true. Matt says, bringing in too many immigrants to live in these immorally tiny dog crate condos, all for investor profit. Well, and don't forget, like, bringing in all of these immigrants, like, how else do you get people to accept these shitty low wages for shitty jobs, right? And how else do you suppress the value of labor, right? Like, the worst thing that could happen to the investor class, these worthless parasites, is if there was full employment, right? Full employment would drive wages upward, and people would actually expect to be paid their value and their worth. And you can't have that. Like, we're trying to make slaves here, right? And so the best way to suppress labor is to just flood the market with a bunch of desperate people, right? Good people, hardworking people, people who are just looking for a better life because we've bombed their country into submission, right? Like, I know people who have come over from like Syria, right? Like, places that we've carpet bombed and destroyed and cooed their government and all this. And they're fleeing from that. And they're just trying to make a decent life for themselves. And so they come here to Canada and they work their asses off. And they work their asses off for cheap because that's still a better life than the life we were giving them over in Syria, right? And that's the goal. The goal is to create a cheap labor force. And then, of course, it's also useful politically because it allows us to scapegoat those very people whenever there's a political problem. Instead of saying, like, hey, these capitalists are psychopaths and we should strip them of all their assets and remove them from power completely, obviously. Instead of that, we get to be like, those darn immigrants. Oh, it's the immigrants that are the problem. Like, it's just dead brain bullshit. Just like monkey stuff, you know? It's just monkey stuff at this point. And like, are we going to get to a point where we're not basically just monkeys? And I don't think we are. Like, I think that's basically where we're at now. It's just like, we're gonna be scared little monkeys, and as things decay and as things get worse, the monkeys are just gonna scream louder. And we're not gonna actually put forward solutions. Any solutions that do get put forward are just gonna be voted down because the monkeys with the big pile of money want to keep their big pile of money. It's just straight up like a monkey with a pile of bananas, only it's worse. Because at least you can eat a banana. Like, money is just nothing. It's just vapor. It's an illusion. It's this thing that just can, like, it intrinsically has no value. It by itself is not a thing, and yet we've based our entire society on this concept, which is why we have ended up being a cult. We're just this religious death cult that sacrifices everything at the altar of a fake god that we invented. And then we have the audacity to look back at like ancient religions or ancient societies and be like, what a bunch of barbarians. There's no group of people more barbaric than us. Like, it's not even remotely close. Like, we're just as bad as any of these fucking like Aztec cults and any of this, like, any of this shit. Find anything that has happened in any civilization at any point through human history. We're worse, or at least as bad. Like, we'll take a look at like a group of indigenous people wearing like masks and feathers and stuff, praying to some kind of god, and be like, "Oh, what a bunch of barbarians!" And then we'll open up our bank account and be like, "Oh, I'm getting pretty low on mystic bucks, on magic beans. But better go sacrifice my entire existence and life to a death cult that's obviously trying to destroy all human life for these magic beans that we invented. Yeah, but my innovation! Oh!" Mark says, we look at them sideways about human sacrifice. What the fuck people think capitalism is? The military, human experiments. Yeah. No, I do think that there are just people who spawn into reality and they're essentially like an NPC from a video game. Like they just they were built out of a barracks and they're just being sent in the direction, like, go in hot. Yeah, lock them and load them, right? And all of these guys play Call of Duty. Like, they're just these like NPC brained people who basically want to play like cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians, and that's all they really want to do. So they get scooped up by the military. Gamer Jam over on Twitch. If the combined wealth of all the world's billionaires was liquidated, it would be enough to give every adult and child in Gaza a $7 million to fund a new life somewhere peaceful. If the monsters who run everything are dead set on ethnic cleansing, at least be fair about it. Yeah, good luck on that one, Gamer Jam. Like, that kind of speaks to something I was talking about earlier, man. Like, I just wish we were getting a little bit more realistic about what needs to be done. Like, really. Like, I really wish that we were just getting a little bit more realistic about what actually has to be done to stop these people. Because right now we're just sort of living in a fanciful world where we're like, oh, it would be so lovely, and wouldn't it be beautiful if we could pass this piece of legislation that would make everybody's lives so much better? And, oh, we're just living in a dream world. Like, we're not going to pass any of that legislation. Like, none of that is actually going to happen, right? And like, to the people who are sitting there being like, "Oh, John, you can't be negative like that. You're going to manifest it." It's like, okay, well, cool. Well, let's see it. Like, let's see it. I would be completely in favor of the passing of this legislation. Let's see it. Oh, is it not happening? Why do you think it's not happening? Oh, is it because we're run by a capitalist death cult that's trying to destroy everyone and increase everybody's suffering? Like, do you think that might have something to do with it? And that if we don't actually confront this death cult with a force required to actually confront it, then it's just going to continue being this way? Oh, no, but we can ask it nicely. We'll just ask it nicely, and nice things will happen, right? We'll just be like, everything would be better if everyone just had access to food and shelter, don't you think? No, you just want to be lazy and sit on your couch and play video games. Which, like, horror to horror, right? Like, oh no. Imagine that. Imagine if we created a reality in which a person could sit on a couch and play video games. Oh, fucking no. Oh, the horror. Meanwhile, the thing we're trying to prevent is literally people dying in the streets. Like, this is what's so offensive about this line of reasoning to me, is that it fundamentally tries to say that a person wasting their lives sitting on a couch playing video games that idea is worse than a person dying of hunger on the streets. Like, I'll bite my bullet. If my policy results in people comfortably playing video games as opposed to dying pointlessly in the streets, yeah, I'll bite that bullet. Okay. All right. I guess some people will just have to live comfortable lives. Shit. As opposed to your policy in which people die horribly to exposure and homeless on the street. Like, that's what's so insane about these capitalist simps, is that they're just demonic and they don't even realize it. Yeah, that's their go-to scenario for laziness. And that's the worst thing that they can conjure, right? The worst thing that they can conjure is an imaginary scenario in which a person wastes their lives playing video games on a couch, while the reality that is actually happening in front of your eyes that you can go see is people wasting away in hunger on the streets. And they're trying to convince you that their scenario is actually worse for everybody. That it's actually good that people die in the streets and homeless. Like, that's how psychotic these people are. And that's how psychotic their worldview has become. Like, they have no empathy. They've lost the capacity for empathy. And moreover, they're not very creative or intelligent. Like, their big threat is that everybody will be comfortable. Oh no, everyone will be comfortable. Like, these people are psychos. The captain over on Twitch writes, did you hear Trump bragged he told Putin and Xi he would bomb their respective capitals? Can you imagine if he did it, dude? Just, like, brother bear. I just don't think he gets it. Like, I just don't think he's like, Trump is so obviously in over his head. Like, he's just so, like how he handled the Iran thing, where he like dropped some bombs on Iran and then it was like, and it's over, mission accomplished. Like, what a dumbass. If he actually did bomb Russia or China, I just don't think he understands what he would be unlocking. Like, Right now, China is playing pretty nice on the world stage, right? There hasn't been a moment where China has really been able to display its military power. And and I've said it before on this channel, and it's worth repeating, the difference between the American military and the Chinese military is that for the last 60 years, the American military has been arming itself and gearing itself to torture Palestinians and murder unarmed civilians and suppress people throughout the Middle East. That's essentially what the American military does now, and what it exists to do, and how it's equipped. The Chinese military for the last 60 years has been arming itself to defeat the Americans. That's the difference. And should a actual war break out between these two forces, China will win, because China is prepared and America is not. China's used to beating up unarmed children. America is used to beating up unarmed children. Like, that's what America does. Like, America goes to Afghanistan and drops bombs on defenseless mothers, and like they have like an Apache drone and they just gun down people who, like, these places have no navies, they have no air force, they barely have standing militias. The militia groups that do exist are designated as quote unquote terrorist groups, right? And this is what America does. And so they've built all of their equipment and all of their thinking and all of their military thought on the idea of destroying people who can't fight back, right? And creating a propaganda system to convince people that, like, oh, it's when those people fight back that's actually the problem, right? Like hacks like Sam Harris, just these demons basically saying like, oh, the Muslims fought back, they're the real villains, right? And this has been how America has operated. Meanwhile, China, for the last 60 years, has just been steadily building up its military capabilities with the full idea that it might have to fight America. And they've been building that army to specifically be like, okay, we might need to push out off the coast of China. How do we do that? How do we take over the South Asian Sea? How do we defeat America? Right? And so while America has been building these big floating platforms that are just massive targets for military system for missile systems, like, imagine actually thinking an aircraft carrier is a good idea. The only way that you can think that an aircraft carrier is a good idea is if you don't actually believe any country you will ever antagonize will ever have access to one missile, right? These are big, giant floating liabilities that will be taken out. Should America roll one of these aircraft carriers into the South China Sea, it will be gone. And it'll be gone like that. It won't even be a thing. They'll literally just be like, and the aircraft carrier is floating in, and it's gone. It'll be like that. And they'll completely predict it. Any military personnel will be like, yeah, that's obviously what's going to happen there. China has built a fleet of amphibious tanks, specifically to island hop, so that when they need to pull the trigger on Taiwan, or if they have to pull the trigger on any of the island systems that exist throughout that area, they'll have an amphibious tank fleet. So they won't need to load tanks onto a platform, bring the platform over, load them up. They'll just boom. Like, that's the kind of thing that's like a new blitzkrieg, right? I hate to bring up the Nazis in regards to the Chinese, but it is like militarily the same idea. And I think lots of people will not understand that until they see it, which is exactly how the blitzkrieg was so powerful, and exactly why the Soviets were able to finally thwart it, was because nobody had seen it before. Nobody understood how the blitzkrieg worked, and nobody understood how effective and powerful and fast it actually was until it happened. And it was only when it happened in France. France was the big one that it happened in. And it wasn't until the Soviets were able to study it, and they finally were like, okay, this is how we prevent this from happening. And they created the system of encirclement, which of course the West was like, and it worked, but at what cost? Yeah, at the cost of defeating the Nazis. That was the cost. And the sorry, I just got distracted by my chat. Con, what are you saying here? Live okay is work part time. Live okay is work part time. What are you saying, my man? You're just like, never mind, never mind. Yeah, Gamer Jam. The last 50 years, 79 trillion in wealth has been redistributed from the bottom 90% to the top 1% is the problem. Yeah. June says, John, you claimed that consensual consanguinamory is impossible. What is consang? What is consanguinamory? Oh, incest. June, you seem really interested in this subject. Yeah, no, my feeling on this and my thought on this is that um, you can't like so June follows it up, right? In a 1980 survey by Dave Finkelhorn of 221 undergraduates at 6 colleges and universities in New England who had reported some type of sexual experience involving a sibling, 75% of the vast majority said that their experiences were not exploitative in nature. I mean, that's what they'll say. Like, that's what they'll say. Like, the entire situation it's impossible to have consent in these situations. And I'm absolutely sure that these people will gaslight themselves or have a Stockholm syndrome kind of method of thinking about it. Right? But I like my sister, right? I like my dad, right? And yeah, maybe we had a thing, right? Like, so, but it's over and it's fine or whatever, right? And however they're coping with it to get through their lives, right? Sure. And like people cope with that kind of shit all the time, and people cope with that all with that kind of and you know, and I bet you anything that there's just like situations where something happens or there's just like a moment of drunken passion or whatever, right? And then people just move on from it and then cope with it however they want and they get over it. Like, fine, cool. That's not really what we're talking about when we're talking about like we're talking about, is it socially acceptable? Like, is it socially acceptable? Is it a socially acceptable thing that should everybody be like, yes, sex between siblings should be fine? And the answer to that is no. And so the vast majority of the people surveyed have Stockholm syndrome, is what you're saying. Yeah, pretty much. Like, people cope. People cope with this shit. Like, they don't want to hold on to the idea that they are dirty or they're filthy or they've done something wrong. They don't want to be judged by their society. They don't want to so they've created this coping mechanism where they've convinced themselves that it's fine. And like, for many of them, I guess it is fine. Like, they're off living their lives and everything's like fine. Should we round these people up and like persecute them? No. Like, shit's fucked up and people do fucky shit all the time. That's fine. But like, my position on the subject is that there is no such thing as consent in these situations. They're just not. Why can't it be consensual? Because there's too much emotional manipulation that exists between these parties. Like, it can't ever be a situation in which all parties are just entering into it with full knowledge or full consent. And I just don't believe that can ever really be the case, because you are siblings. It's inherent to the nature of the relationship. It's just inherent to the nature of the relationship. Like, certainly, like a father and a daughter that is never going to be consensual, right? It's just never going to be a thing. Like, and I'm sure that you could show me a study in which somebody would have convinced themselves that it's okay. Like, I'm sure that you could show me a father and a daughter who have convinced themselves that this is okay. I'm sure that you could show me a mother and a son that have convinced themselves that this is okay. I'm sure that you could show me a brother and a sister who have convinced themselves that this is okay. Right? I'm sure you could do that. Like, I'm positive. Does that mean that we as a society should just say, cool, this is fine? Everybody do it. Everybody have sex with your siblings and your sister and your brothers and your fathers and your mothers. I'm just like, yeah, and like porn has those themes all over. Like incest exists as a major, like, and it's annoying, by the way. Like, how many times do they like when they throw in that step bro shit? Step sis, stepmom, stepdad. Like, we all know what you're doing. It's annoying. Like, get this shit out of here. Why you got to make it weird like this? June says, so you're just going to dismiss any evidence to the contrary I show you as cope, but that is what it is. Like, you can show me people being like, yes, I have a sexual relationship with my father, a sexual relationship with my mother, a sexual relationship with my siblings, and everything's fine, and I consent, and all of that kind of stuff. Sure. But, like, inherent, like, the thing that you're dismissing in this is that inherent to the nature of the relationship between these parties is an element of coercion and an element of trust that is being manipulated in order to result in an incestuous relationship. Like, and that's inherent to the nature of the relationship that they have, right? Like the relationship between a father and a daughter or son, or a mother and a daughter or son, it's inherently one that can be manipulated, like inherently. And it's the inherent quality of their relationship that means that this is not something uh, uh, like, so it's an unfalsifiable doctrine then. Like, the reality of a father, the relationship between a father and, like, yeah, this conversation is getting kind of weird. Like, I am never going to say that incest is okay. It's just never going to happen. And the reason why I'm never going to say it is because there is always a quality of manipulation between family members. It literally cannot be a consensual relationship. And like, I understand that people find a way through it in order to live in the world so they don't fucking kill themselves or whatever. But that doesn't mean that it's suddenly okay and that we should be permissive to this on a wide scale. And like, I understand that people have kinks and people have this like proclivity for it, which is like something to work through, I think. But yeah, I think I am going to move on from it, Cotton, because I just like I don't really get why it's being brought up, nor do I get like why I'm expected to give way to this. Like, it's a weird human behavior, and it's something that clearly has become very popular, but fascism is very popular. So I'm not yeah, I'm not really that happy that I'm having this conversation either. So I think I'm just going to move on. Yeah, that's actually a really disturbing conversation. Like, it's just genuinely, like, it's just genuinely upsetting. Because it's like not okay, right? Like, It's just not okay. Like you can't. You could try to justify it all you want, but at the end of the day, like the parties are so vulnerable, and there's so much vulnerability happening there that's obviously being manipulated and exploited, and that the people who are doing the exploitation self-justify to themselves why it isn't exploitation, and the people who are being exploited justify to themselves why they're not being exploited. And I see no reason to let anybody off the hook just because they did a study where a bunch of people were like, "Yeah, it was fine that my dad diddled me or whatever." Like, oh geez, yeah, we're a fallen people, man. Like we're fallen. It's a catastrophe. No, ugh. This is why we got to keep studying the humanities. Like getting away from the humanities is a big problem, right? Because you can have all the data you want, but if you don't actually understand the subject of humans and of humanity, or if you're not trying to understand the subject of humanity and of humans, then you can just say what you like. Like, and that, you know what, June? I don't want to have this conversation. I'm just going to move on. I don't respect your position. I don't respect what you're doing. And I'm really going to ask you to not bring it into my chat anymore. Pretty straightforwardly. And in fact, you can come back next week. I'm not happy with how this went, and I'm not happy that you brought this into my chat. Oh, well, if that's the case, then June, bye. We don't need you in here. We don't need this sort of like pro incest position to be in here. So bye, June. It was nice knowing you. Yeah, she's just killing herself. Simple as that. No, I just don't need this like pro incest shit in here. I don't need to be talking about it. Nor do I need somebody to be trying to push on the idea that it's a good thing to do. Yeah, pro incest position. Really weird. Creepy. Just creepy. Creepy, strange, unusual. Like, I get why people would like jerk off to it. Like, I understand that. Like people, when you get into that weird like masturbatorial state or like the sex state, it's like, you know, people get weird, and that's part of it. But yeah, Mark's like shit's like this. Why I'm okay with China's quote unquote censorship. It's like, yeah, you know, like it's one thing to be like behind closed doors, but to bring it into like a public space and try to make it okay, it's like, nah, that's cool. Like, not gonna not gonna tolerate that shit. Ugh. No, you know what, man? I do hate to do this, but like I'm not gonna continue today. That was just kind of gross, frankly. Like just not at all okay. Ugh. Dude, I've had like Nazis come in here and I've just kept streaming. I've had like that kind of stuff. This was just like, ooh, long time viewer with a pro incest position. Nope, we're good. Bye. Thanks, Oddity. Always good to see you right at the end. Yeah, I think that's right. Well, I've been streaming for about 3 hours now anyway, so it's about time. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel, revolt, repent. Good luck. we're gonna need it.